Welcome back, everyone, to the PXP Let's Talk Success podcast. I'm your host, Dre, joined as always by my co-host, Paul.
Hello, everybody.
How are you doing today?
Great. We survived that snowstorm that was yesterday in our world, but maybe last week for some of our listeners.
Yeah, we did. We survived. For Atlanta is like in our top 5 cities for listeners. So I don't know if they got any snow or not.
Maybe they got snowed in, they could listen even more.
Maybe.
Yeah.
So for those of you in Atlanta that maybe you didn't experience snow, you're lucky.
Or maybe they just got ice.
Or that too. Yeah.
So quick story about Atlanta and ice.
Mm-hmm.
This takes us back about 2 decades ago. I'm traveling with the team. I'm in North Carolina, and we had just flown through Atlanta to get home, and there was an ice storm that was chasing us. And they were talking about we're supposed to get a 1/4 inch of ice, and everybody in the South is panicking about this 1/4 inch of ice. It's my second year being in the South. Growing up here in the Midwest, we're used to blizzards and snow and inches and this kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. So we get down there, and I see all this panic in everybody's conversation, and I'm like, it's a 1/2 inch of ice that we're expecting, okay? Mm-hmm. It's not going to be that bad for long. I mean, they're talking about buying the store up so they can, be in their houses for weeks and this kind of stuff. And I'm like, it's not going to be that bad.
Yeah. So
we got back to North Carolina, and the ice storm come through, and it's got ice, thick ice there. It's maybe only about a 1/4 inch. It wasn't a 1/2 inch. And so the next day, all schools are canceled, and everybody's panicked, and it's slick roads like it would be around here, right? Mm-hmm. The next day, I go into the office, and I don't have an awesome vehicle. I mean, I've got one that's built for the South, not built for ice. Okay. And so I'm sliding a little bit, but not too bad. I mean, you drive responsibly. Right. I get in, and my secretary's not there, and I know she drives a 4-wheel drive. Mm-hmm. And she's not there, and she used that 4-wheel drive. She would go to the beach and drive on the sand, this kind of stuff. So that's why she had a 4-wheel drive in the South to go on the beach. So I'm expecting her in later, and so assuming maybe she got the kids on the bus, or something's going on. There's a little bit of a delay. Mm-hmm. She doesn't come in all day. There's no message. And I'm like, okay. Well, the next day, I go back in. Roads are clear. Okay, I'm not sliding around this time. We drive right in. She's still not there. And so one of my colleagues, we're all concerned, but one of my colleagues calls her and says, "Hey, you okay?" She goes, "Yeah, I can't get in." And I'm kind of tipping my head, kind of looking at this like, you got a 4-wheel drive. There's not much ice on the roads, but that's how it was down there. It was, I'm going to say 2 weeks. It might have been only like 10 days before she got made it back to the office. Wow. But it's a different world. Yeah. It's a different world relative to the ice and expectations and so forth.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's crazy. If you didn't know, they have a nice aquarium down there. So
indoors, no ice.
Yes, no ice indoors. And it has like this tunnel that you walk under. It's the scariest thing. Because you have like those whales and sharks swimming over you. Yeah. I'm like, if this thing goes,
it could collapse on you. Just hold your breath.
Yeah, I don't think I'd be holding it for too long. I'd be out of there. All right. Well, let's go ahead and get to I like this one. Let's get Cricket's joke in there. What's Forrest Gump's computer password?
Forrest Gump's computer password.
Yep. It is 1 Forrest 1.
Yeah. I like that. I was thinking maybe it was going to deal with something around chocolate.
Oh, okay. No. 1 Forrest 1. I like that one. All right, everyone. We're going to get into today's topic. Today's topic, if you're not watching and you're just listening, we actually have a guest today. Very special guest. Ran through Spain or something like that.
We're going to learn all about that.
Yep, absolutely. So I'd like to introduce Cathy Wolfe to the podcast. How are you doing today?
I am fantastic, and I just want to say absolutely flattered to be here.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah. It's no big deal. We're just a couple of guys talking.
And we're not the ones who went 500 miles, right?
That's correct.
We're all in awe of what you've done, and for our listeners, I mean, 500-mile event that she trained for a long time, and obviously she didn't do it in one setting, but this was a long journey that she went on to and prepared for, and we're all in awe of what you're doing. I can't wait to hear more about this.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, so I'm gonna for all the listeners, I'm gonna let Paul kind of run the show from here because I actually don't know all about it or the event or anything like that. So I'll let you take over.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Dre. So, Cathy, tell us about this event. What's the name of it? Where is it at? Just a little overview of what the event was.
Okay. It's called the El Camino de Santiago, which actually translates to the Way of St. James. Historically, it's a religious pilgrimage that started centuries ago, and people would pack up from wherever they lived, and the goal was to walk to Santiago de Compostela, go to the cathedral there, because then they would be washed of their sins and things would be all good.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So it has continued from that point to people do still do it for religious reasons, but all different kinds now at this point.
Yeah.
But there are also different routes because people came from different locations. So my boyfriend and I ended up doing the route from France, so it's called the French route.
Okay.
And it happens to be the longest one, and it's 500 miles. So it was really cool because we started in France and then walked the northern part of Spain, and ended up it's pretty close to the ocean. So
That's awesome.
yeah.
But and I enjoyed learning more about it through you as we were on this journey for me of coaching you to do this. But what was it that? Can you describe the terrain and the mountains? And let's have a little quick geography lesson for all of us.
That was the fun and the crazy part because there's no consistency in it at all. Spain is a mountain, at least in northern Spain. It's very mountainous, so we were either crossing mountains or we were in the foothills. So there was a lot of uphill, downhill that we had to train for. The terrain was crazy because sometimes we might be walking on the side of the road, sidewalks, dirt paths through the mountains. There was cobblestone, which sounds romantic, but when you're hiking, it's not so much fun. And then the toughest part was whenever there was, loose stone and gravel. And that was a challenge going up, especially going down because of the footing and that type of thing. So that was one variable. The weather was also unpredictable because we would have scorching sun one day, maybe really high winds blowing against us. It did get cooler as we got further to the coast because it was later on it took over a month. We had rainstorms, that we had to walk through. So that was kind of the fun of it. You never knew what you were going to get each day.
Yeah. So this is a month-long journey.
Yeah, a little over for us.
Yeah. And so each day you would go how far?
We averaged about 14, 15 miles a day. So primarily we would get some high mileage, 13, I think the highest maybe was 20. Toward the end, we were ahead of schedule, which was fantastic. So we slowed it down because I didn't want it to end. It was so great. And started doing, a couple of 6-milers back to back.
Yeah. So there's a bunch of stuff I want to unpack inside there. So let's start with the terrain. Okay. You live in central Indiana.
Yeah.
And you use the word mountains.
Yes.
Okay. So can you contrast that for us? Give us a visual or a perception of what that was really like.
Yeah, over there, it was, a complete challenge because we don't have those types of hills. And the other thing too is I've learned they don't believe in switchbacks. It's straight up. It's straight back
If you're going to get it, go get it, right?
Exactly. So that's how it was. So what I did and what helped a lot was through your coaching. And to be honest, at first I thought it was a little crazy. It's like, come on, Paul. You started off talking about it was all about heart rate in a certain period of time. And I thought, come on, man, give me some miles because I got to get miles in. But you were so right. It was all about heart rate and building that. So we started off slower in a smaller amount of time from the beginning. And then I looked the other day, I think I did 5 hours was the last one. So we built through that. But you never gave me mileage to go. It was all about heart rate. And by golly, you were right. Thank goodness for me.
Well, I want to get into that, the training piece here in a little bit. And so that's going to be an important piece for all of us to remember as we get to that discussion. But we're in central Indiana. We don't have mountains, right? What was the elevation difference? How high did you have to climb?
The highest was 5,000 feet.
Yeah. And where did you start at? What was the I guess, base elevation.
Yeah, 200. I have to take it by times kilometers.
Mm-hmm.
It was 600 feet was the start.
So getting close to sea level, but not quite sea level, right?
Yeah.
And so you're 45 to 40, 42 to 4,500 feet of elevation that you've got to climb multiple times.
Yeah.
And descend.
Yes. Yeah. It was interesting because to start, the way we broke, I mean, we were on the second highest peak day 2. So it was like, let's go.
Let's get after it right away.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, that terrain piece and like, climbing, if you've, well, use Eagle Creek for a moment, just in terms of trying to find something locally here that, you go out and climb some of those, you're not going to call those mountains for sure,
No.
but inclines.
Yes. Yeah. Thank goodness. I live a mile from beautiful Eagle Creek with all of the trails. Yeah. So I would go and discover the trails where I would be walking the highest number of hills, or I would go up, go back down, go up, go back down. They have a lot of stairs there too, so I'd go up, go back down, go up. So just repeat as many of those, or make sure I included it in the workout as possible.
Yeah, and so that was a big challenge for you to find the terrain to mimic that, right? And
sure.
And at the same time, there's no way around here that you're going to be able to mimic 4,000 foot of climbing.
No.
Right?
No.
And so I'm going to fast forward just real quick and touch on the training and then come back because I want to talk about more about the geography and all that kind of stuff of the event.
Okay.
That's why I went with the heart rate piece, because you can't simulate the actual terrain, the actual performance, but you can simulate the effort. And so that's part of what we used for those pieces. And for our listeners, no matter what your event is, if you can simulate or get your body to think in terms of intensity of the activity, I almost said duration, but that will play a role in it. But you don't want to jump right into 500-mile duration, right, in the training. So there's always a gradual ramp up. And as you indicated, none of our training got more than 5 hours. And 5 hours sounds like a long time, but over 6-7 months of training to get you there, that 5 hours wasn't that long relative to the entire journey you had for multiple days. What was the longest duration that you walked in any one day on that journey?
Yeah, I believe it was 20 miles.
Yeah.
Ended up that day having to do it by myself. Unfortunately, there were some injuries that were involved, but
none on you.
No.
Atta girl. Atta girl.
No. So 20. I think did that a couple of times.
Yeah. And so, how long did that 20-mile journey take you?
Oof. At that time, I could average about 3 miles per hour. When I did it by myself, I had a quicker.
Yeah. So you're talking about 6 to 8 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, I'm wanting to point that out because in your training, you didn't do the full duration of what you did on one day of things. And you had to do that back to back to back to back, right?
Yes.
And so sometimes in our training, we don't, we try to overtrain many times, right, going into it.
Yeah.
How did you feel? I'm going to come back again. I want to stay in the geography, but I keep getting enticed into the training side of it. As you're going through it, you talked about some doubts and some fears about would this really work. As you got about halfway or 2/3 through, what was your mindset or how did you embrace that training?
Again, at first, I was questioning it because like you were just saying, I was thinking, oh, let's get in, let's overwork. Let's do more miles than I really need to do once I get there. But as I started going through, just as long as I saw progress, I was improving week by week. And then it was like, oh, yeah, this is cool. This is working.
Here it comes.
Yeah, like a couple of weeks, I couldn't do that. And now I can. So it was great.
And then I remember this. I'm going to see if you remember this. We were about halfway through, and everything up to this point had been walking at certain heart rate intensities. And you started talking about, my heart rate's not getting up to this level anymore. Yeah. What should I do? Because you were gaining fitness. You were targeting your heart rate at a certain number. And then early on, you're walking, and you're like, Paul, it's going above that number. I'm like, slow down. About halfway through, you're like, I can't get my heart rate to go up. Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah.
Space? Can you describe what that was like for you?
For me, it was frustrating because I love being able to tell me what to do. Just tell me what to do, and I'll go and I'll do that. And I couldn't get there. So it was like, how do I accomplish this? I just don't know how.
Do you remember what the solution was?
Yeah, one of the things that I did was we walked with a pack. We had everything on our backs.
We added weight to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I just put more weight, ended up walking with probably 10, 12 more pounds than I did whenever we went over to Spain.
Yep.
And so that helped a bunch.
Yeah. And then do you remember a conversation about jogging?
Yeah.
And it wasn't the opposite conversation that I've had with many of our athletes. Many of our athletes come in and they want to go out and they run really hard, really fast. And I'm just like, hey, keep your heart rate here. But Paul, if I keep my heart rate there, I'm walking. And I'm like, yes, do that because your engine's working at a certain intensity. We want to train that and be at that space. And then later on, they kind of come to a place where you're at like, hey, I can do more at the same intensity. And that's where you were at. Right. We didn't need you running 500 miles. That wasn't the goal, but being able to have you overtrain in pace, overtrain in what you're carrying, carrying that backpack up and down. And I remember a few times we had more weight.
Yes.
Had more weight.
Yeah, that helped a lot.
Yeah. What else do you remember about that time? What are some recollections within that?
Adding more weight?
Sure. I mean, good or bad. I mean, not everything went perfectly smooth, right? We had some things to overcome at different times.
Right. Yeah. For me, actually, it was great as I started to add more mileage and the weight, because then this ended up helping me with the gear. I don't know if that's what you want me to say or talk about, but in the beginning it was like, oh, these hikers are great. But after I started doing more mileage with heavier weight, it's like, these aren't so great. And it was wonderful because anytime I felt a little, this is feeling a little funny to me, you would immediately know what it would be or what it was. Yeah. So it's like, okay, then I've got to go this direction, start working on these types of things to get me ready, because over there, I'm not going to be able to switch out this or that.
Yeah, everything from your shoes.
Absolutely. Socks.
Do they fit? Do they work?
Exactly.
How are your socks? What's going to happen when they get wet?
Yes.
Same thing on every race day, every piece. If somebody's going into an event and they haven't tested what they're really going to wear, I'm always nervous. I'm like, what's going to happen?
Exactly. Yeah, and we weren't privy to REIs over there necessarily. When you started, and in the big cities, yes, but in between,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that was fun watching that happen. What you thought was going to be a great pair of shoes, and then you're like, maybe I need to look at something different, or you started getting some a blister or a foot soreness, or it just didn't feel right.
Right.
And then you can adapt and change those things. And I think that needs to be a big piece of everybody's training, no matter what you're training for. Let's go back. Let's go back to the geography and the other pieces. You talked about traveling through rainstorms.
Yeah.
Can you describe one of those?
Oh, it was interesting because we were supposed to be in an area where they didn't get very much rain, and we just got pummeled. I mean, it was a downpour for, 2 days primarily. That was a challenge because everything got heavier, obviously. I mean, we tried to prepare with ponchos, and I had bread bags, that I would put my feet in and then put my shoes, because my shoes were not waterproof. Didn't want them to be, because then you would sweat too much and then you would get blisters. So it was this balance of things. It was a challenge too, because once we got to our location, trying to dry everything out for the next day. So that was difficult. It was also interesting, I'll throw this in, our perspective. We came in and we were hiking, it'd been a long day, and just complaining about dripping, sopping wet, and how hard it made it, and puddles and all this kind of thing. I mean, complaining, not really, because I understood how grateful.
Commiserating.
There we go, yes. And the owner of the hostel where we were staying, she was doing backflips because they're in a drought like we were. And so it's like, oh man, I need to change the way I'm thinking about this. This was a glorious day for them. So, but it was a challenge to walk through. Yeah.
And so I'm assuming that there was some lightning here and there and all those sort of things.
Yeah, the wind was crazy. Yeah, it was hard to stay. I think my shirt stayed dry.
Yeah.
That was about it.
I'm imagining like a Winnie the Pooh story here. You got Christopher Robin and Winnie the Pooh walking through that blustery storm, and kind of
Yes.
leaning into it, watching everything go through.
Yes.
You've got your poncho on. I'm seeing Christopher Robin's poncho blowing behind him.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. It was like that. There was another day, again, in the high plateau, the winds, because it's so flat. And that's, I mean, there are wind turbines everywhere, which made total sense. But just blowing against us, which was like, oh, come on. But it also made it part of the fun, too.
For some of our cyclists and triathletes, if they're out riding and they got that big headwind, they start getting, oh, this is terrible. And they're working harder. They're going slower. And you got that mental anguish of the wind blowing in. If there's any sort of light rain, then it pelts you a little harder.
Yes.
And you're getting that same thing going through the mountains.
Yeah.
And how long, during those storms, how long did you tolerate it? How long were you out there walking through that storm?
It was a normal day. I mean, on average, we were out 7 hours. So you just went through it. Yeah. And what was cool was, other people are doing it too. So when you start thinking, maybe we should, you just keep going. It's just a part of it.
Well, the point I wanted our listeners to hear there is that we talked about how long your 20 miles took, and it was, you were telling me it was 7 hours on average each day. And if the storm came up, it was still 7 hours.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Yes.
It was still getting after it. It wasn't like, oh, where's my Uber? Right.
No.
And so where did you walk to, though?
We would have oftentimes it was a hostel, or they called them albergues. They are designed we're called pilgrims when we do this walk. And so they're designed for us to stay. So we generally would plan 2 to 3 days ahead and reserve for a couple of reasons. Some people love to go and just do it and spontaneously find a place that night. We were walking 2 years post-COVID. So everyone and their brother wanted to get out and go do this thing too. The other part that we didn't realize until later was that there are certain years that this is called the Holy Year of St. James. So religiously, in 22, it was supposed to be a holy year, but the Pope, because of COVID, in 21, but the Pope, because of COVID, said, no, we're going to move it to 22 and include that as a holy year, because that means more to them religiously. So there were a lot more people, and we were very concerned about getting somewhere after a 15-mile walk and having to sleep on the park bench.
Where would you sleep?
Well, she's so tough. She would find some pine needles and make her little nest and get a little lean-to.
That one made for a great experience, but not my preference.
Right. Absolutely. So that was going to be my next point here. Is you walked from point to point. 0 miles to 500 miles, and within that each day, you found some place to stay, or you scheduled some place to stay. You had targets that you're getting to along the way.
We did. Yeah.
What was your favorite one?
Ooh, I don't. Everybody asks me what's the favorite part. I can't. I just can't. Every day was amazing. Our schedule ended up. It fell into almost the exact same thing. Get up at 6. Go at 7. We'd grab we'd eat a banana or something on the way, grab a wonderful coffee con leche that they had and a breakfast.
I was going to ask, I was like, if you didn't have a favorite place, did you have a favorite food? Because we are foodies on this podcast.
Yeah, no, because you can just experience so much. I mean, there were all the meats and breads, and we literally were walking through fields of things that we were going to eat. Olive trees, and then of course the wine section, was just so plentiful. As we got to the coast, I was trying octopus and paella and things like that. But so in that in-between time though, until you got to that other place, and that other place, that was the whole experience itself. It was all about what you were going to see, the people that you would see. Sometimes you'd pass each other, for a few days, and then poof, they're gone. They stopped, or they went further, or we went further. I mean, it was just totally wonderfully diverse, even though it was the same schedule.
That sounds like one of our regular races in
Ironman,
right?
That's what I was thinking the whole time.
Yeah, you're out there running your marathon or running different pieces of it. You see somebody, you leapfrog them here and there, and all of a sudden they're gone or you're gone, and because you got tired, they got tired.
Right. Yeah, I was like.
So it sounds like the same thing, just extended over a month.
Yes, very much so.
Were there any people who stood out? I mean, each of the day, the whole event was awesome, right? I mean, so that's where you've got this big enthusiasm about the event, and there wasn't one spot that was more memorable than another.
Mm-mm.
How about the people along the way? Was there any characters that you got to see or that kind of stand out?
Yes. Ironically,
Other than Christopher Robin and William Prue.
yes. Everyone was amazing, diverse, all the different cultures. I mean, everybody from all over the world were doing this same thing. Everybody had the same goal. So it was fantastic to be able to just stop and talk to each other along the way. And you knew that, I may never see this person again in my life, but man, what a great effect they had on me this day. Mm-hmm. Fortunately, we had a few people that we met day one and ended up seeing on the final day, which doesn't happen. And to be honest, a lot of people are not doing this 500 miles. We're blessed because we had the time to do that. Mm-hmm. But most people were doing it in segments. So they'd be out there a week, poof, they're gone. Gotcha. So to be able to see these folks from day one to the end was wonderful. There was one guy he was just such a great friend, but he was so loud. You could hear him everywhere. There's Marty, we always ran into Marty, but he just had this wonderful presence. He was a happy guy, and it was great.
That's awesome. So what's your, to do this 500-mile event, I mean, it's pretty daunting, right? I mean, it's a big accomplishment. I get people coming in here and saying, hey, I want to train for a 10K, right? And so to them, that's daunting.
Yes.
Others, want to train for a marathon or a half iron or a triathlon or a full iron, different durations that seem huge to them. Mm-hmm. Well, 500 miles to most of us seems huge. What was the inspiration, or what was your background to want to do this?
It was a couple of things. One, I had seen the movie called The Way. It's with Martin Sheen, if you ever want to watch it. That introduced me to this, and it's like, ooh, that's something that I would like to do a lot, because that is what I did was everything I love. The diversity, international travel, a challenge, being outside, just all of the landscape. Mm-hmm. I have always loved fitness. I've always loved the challenge. So I've done things here and there, but ignorantly training myself on my own, and I did them, but I'm sure I could have done a lot better. Which takes me to Paul and PXP. I am, I'm in my 60s now. And
you're what?
Yes, sir, I'm there. So I knew that I needed to get some help. I came to you and said, I have a goal of doing this 500 miles, but within that, one, I want to be able to finish. Mm-hmm. Two, I want to be able to go and where we end up in these villages and not just totally collapse. I want to be able to enjoy it, and I don't want injury. And thank goodness we accomplished each of those. Yeah. So it's a combination of all of those things. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do you get a medal at the end or anything?
You know what you get? Oh, this is...
You get a medal.
Yes. It's similar, yeah. So if you have to walk at least 62 miles of it to get what's called a Compostela. Okay. And so when we started, we got a pilgrim's passport, is what it's called, and you get a stamp. Everywhere you go. Cool. So I've got this card full of all these wonderful stamps, whether it was where we stayed or a cathedral or what they call a bar. They call everything a bar, but it's really, more of a cafe restaurant type place. And this proves that you did the walk. Okay. So when you finish, you go to this, where all these pilgrims have dragged themselves in on the last day, and they're excited. But we're all in line, and you get a beautiful certificate, and you can pay like $2 more to get one that shows the mileage. It's like, oh, yeah, I'm getting that one. And it's cool, too, because they write it in your Latin name, because it's a religious venture. So I have this beautiful certificate that I brought back with me.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So, you may not know this about us runners and triathletes and so forth, but we do races for the T-shirt and the medal.
That's correct. That's correct.
Yes.
That's my favorite food for me.
And the post-race food. All right. I do it for breaking even. I got to work out, that way I can eat more.
Right.
That's why I do that.
There you go.
Let's talk about your planning for this, right? So you've got to figure out how to be out there for a month, going from place to place, and you talked about a backpack earlier. What was in your backpack? That shouldn't have been that hard to say. What was in your backpack? And then how did you come up with those things? And was there anything that you would put in it next time?
Yes, that was actually one question that I would ask a lot of people. They went, what did you take that you didn't need, and vice versa. Yeah. A lot of this was just the training. What do I need? You know, what kind of things? I knew that there was going to be sun, so I had to have a hat, you know, the toiletries, anything that you needed at night, or, you know, getting up and getting
yourself ready. Because they had restrooms
ready.
out there along the way for you, right?
No. So there's that too. Right. Yeah, that was a very interesting part of it, particularly in the high plateau where there were no trees, and you know, you just kind of knew everybody's doing their own thing. Yeah. So it was mostly through a lot of research. There's so much information about this out there, which is great. There's a wonderful group here in Indianapolis, actually, too, Hoosiers of the Camino, I believe, and we met with them a couple of times. So researching what you might not need, but mostly it was a lot through the training. What exactly do I need? There were some downpours that I trained in, which was great because it got me ready. What did I need today that didn't work very well?
Well, I remember, you don't know this, but I remember a few times looking at, you know, your training, that kind of stuff, going, there was a storm this weekend. I wonder if she did work out. And then I go look at what time you did. I'm like, yes, she did. Oh, yeah. There she goes.
We were soaked. But it was great. So, yeah, the pack was interesting, too, because that weight would vary. It got to the point where I knew if I had been drinking a lot that day, because water I brought 2 1-liter bottles and filled them. That was 4 pounds. I knew how much I had drank along the way because it became so sensitive. Or if I had a banana in my pack, I knew it because you could feel it day after day. Yeah.
That's pretty cool. I like that.
Yeah, you got to carry your own water, right? Because there are aid stations every mile on the run.
No,
right?
Everything.
I know you would have your pound of honey with you.
I'd have to have so much.
Winnie the Pooh.
Can you imagine my backpack, all the stuff I'd have to have for that thing?
All that honey over there. That's like peanut butter.
Honey, peanut butter. I'd have all kinds of water. I'd have a whole igloo cooler on my back carrying a big thing of water.
One ironic thing, if I can throw it in, we went to our location and from the end via Paris. So we flew in and out of Paris. When we went back and we were flying out, we allowed for a couple of days just to experience it, which was kind of ironic after we had just finished what we did. It happened to be Fashion Week in Paris.
There you go.
Here are all these people celebrating, these beautiful people, and they're wearing all these clothes and getting their photos. And I'm wearing one of 2 outfits that I had worn for the last month. So it was this complete irony. But my mindset, after walking quietly and simplistically was, this is where I am now, not there.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It was crazy.
Yeah, so you're taking me to the place I wanted to go next. I mean, you're walking out there. There's not bands playing you don't have spectators telling you you're almost there, applauding you and holding up signs. And so what do you do during this? How did you occupy your mind?
Yeah.
What kind of things did you learn?
Yes, that ended up being my favorite part of the whole thing. One was, as we talked about, and it sounds like you experienced this too, you would pass people. If you spoke the same language or if you didn't. There's a phrase that everybody uses, and it's called buen camino. Have a good walk. And you hear...
That's a safe word.
It is encouragement.
Yeah.
Other pilgrims say that to each other. The townspeople say that to us as encouragement. It was the most positive experience I had ever had. So those folks kind of pulled you along. Some you'd stop, hey, how are you doing? I saw you a couple of days ago, yada, yada, yada. So that was kind of fun. Tom and I would talk to each other from the start, but for the most part, we walked pretty much single file. One, because that's how the path, how wide it was, and let other people pass. But then also, you just kind of got into your thoughts. It was fantastic. It was kind of a struggle in the very beginning, but it was amazing because we were totally unplugged. No phone. We had to depend on Wi-Fi wherever we ended up. Only social media was whenever I was posting photos to let my family know I was still alive. No TV, none of that. I didn't even listen to music, which I thought that I might. It was just total quiet, and your head just becomes so amazingly clear. I had the most vivid memories of childhood and some other things. You figure things out about yourself too. What am I going to do here? What did I do then that I shouldn't? It just was so clarifying and wonderful, but also became a hard part of coming home. When we went to Paris, this sounds ridiculous, but I didn't enjoy it as much as I wanted to. I wanted quiet and solitude. And so when I came home too, it wasn't that. And that's what I craved. I wanted, it was like walking meditation every day.
Yeah. No, that's pretty cool. I was wondering that because I was like, well, did she have her phone and headphones in then, or what was she listening to? And the podcast wasn't out then, so obviously we failed her on that.
No, we failed her on that. She couldn't hear it. but now on her next journey, she can.
Next time,
and we'll talk about that here a little later on. But one of the things that a lot of our athletes talk about, they'll ask me, "Hey, Paul, what do you listen to when you run?" And I have to look at them and say, "My thoughts." And early in my running career, I wanted the music on because it was my distraction, and I didn't want to feel the pain in my legs. I didn't want to feel what was going on, or I just wanted to have that distraction. And as I grew into the running or grew into the endurance, I can't stand to have music playing when I'm running. That's a wrong phrasing. I don't like it as much as being in my own head.
Yes.
And I like that, being able to feel what's happening, be able to have that time to think, and I won't call it a meditation time. There's hopefully a little bit more intensity to some of my runs, not all of them. But that aspect of being out there and just enjoying it and experiencing it is so awesome.
That, and two, I think I would have missed so much if I'd have put something in my ear. The sounds, whether it was the semis going by when we were walking roadside, or the wind, or every morning it was wonderful. We'd wake up, there would be roosters and dogs. It's like, good morning, and just go from there. I wouldn't have wanted to miss that.
Or around here, you hear the squirrels getting ready to jump out and attack you.
Heck yeah, you do. Have some fat boys out there coming at me.
Absolutely. Well, I did hear a rumor that you've done this 500-mile event, and do you have something coming up?
Well, that rumor is true. Yeah, this was such an incredible experience. I mentioned there are several routes. I'm going to go back about the same time and walk across Portugal instead of Spain.
So instead of the French route, you're going to do the Portuguese route.
Yes. Yeah.
And how long is this one?
This one is 400 miles.
Oh, you were so soft.
I know.
It's only 400 miles?
I know.
And is it similar terrain?
No, it's not. And that's, as I train, I need to make sure that my head gets straight. Because I know right now it's not as many miles, and it's not going to be as mountainous until we do get into Spain. And then it does become that way. This one actually will be much more coastal. So not as difficult, flatter. There will be winds that we have to deal with that way, and more rains, as I understand, but not the mountainous hill.
Yeah, as we've talked about this going into it, I think we had the conversation about the sophomore jinx, right? You've done a really hard, big event, and your next one is not quite as hard. You know it's not as hard. It's not as long. And the fallacy, the mistake to make is that, it's going to be easy because I've done this before.
Right.
And it doesn't matter what your event is.
Right.
That we can fall into that trap all the time. And I think we've all got a story about that, where we did this big event where we're planning for it, training for it. We did the first one, and then maybe that was a full iron. In our world, maybe it was full iron. And then you're going to train for a half iron the next year. Oh, it's just half the distance. Oh, it's a better course. And then you go get your tail handed to you.
Yes.
Because you don't approach it the same way. And so I'm, as a coach, I'm like ecstatic to hear you say those words and recognize that is an opportunity for all kinds of things.
That's the one thing. And then also the boredom. I love Eagle Creek, but I know every corner of that park now. So I need to make sure that, and we've talked about, varying up that workout.
Mm-hmm.
I also have fewer commitments this season, so it'll be nice because I experience state parks and that type of thing.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's the other piece that people don't know is that how much you were doing last year with all this training. I mean, you were doing strength training, you were doing, your training outside of here, you had a relationship, you have family, you have a job, you had all this other stuff to package and put together. And we've had previous guests on and we've talked about different things about life. There's some people that are very fortunate that they can have their event, their training, and that's their life, right? And maybe that's not so fortunate, but they have the opportunity that that's what they do. The rest of us mortals, we fit our fitness in around everything else, and sometimes it becomes a big challenge.
Yes.
I asked this of a previous guest, and so I'm going to ask the same thing of you. How do you fit those things in? How do you make it work?
I'm fortunate I was able to retire early, so I don't have a full-time job. A lot of other folks might. I do have a part-time job. They work with my hours, but there is everything else, family that's involved, kids and all that type of thing, a relationship. It's just a matter of prioritizing. I want this, and so I have to prioritize and squeeze it in where I can.
Yeah, and there's sacrifices along the way. Sometimes you had to prioritize family.
Yes.
Those things came up. Sometimes you prioritized you on your fitness. Sometimes it was doing the training. Sometimes it was a combination. You had to back off of both of those at the same time.
Yes.
And that's what I really want our listeners to truly understand is that there is I almost said there's nobody out there. There might be somebody. The majority of us out there can't be all in on just training and expect everything else to work, right? You can't be all in on not training and expect your fitness to work. And so it's you making decisions each day of what you're going to do and why you're doing it. What is your goal? Why are you doing this? And being successful.
Yeah.
You mentioned your social media posting and the pictures that you did admittedly to make sure your family was alive.
Yeah.
Well, some of us were looking at those pictures going, oh my gosh, I'm so jealous. Is there a favorite picture for you or a favorite scenery that came across that you really...
No. I can't. I can't. There's just something attached to every single photo. But I love photography, so that was another great part of the trip. It's like, oh, how do I see this scene here or whatever?
Well, do you know what? I have a favorite.
You do?
I do. I have a favorite of the picture that you posted. And so some of our listeners may or may not know, but I try to encourage all of our athletes when they cross the finish line that they get their guns up. And they're flashing their biceps and they got their fists going. And you had a couple of those pictures at the end when you raised your arms and there's just some beautiful scenery in the background and you got this big smile on it, you're radiating and you've got that pose going on. Those are some great pictures.
Thank you. Yeah, we peaked. That was the highest peak that day. So it was fun. It's hard for me. I mean, it was funny. I was, Tom, take my picture with me. And there were people walking by, meditating. It's like, oh, this is hard. But it was, yes, when I see the picture, I am just ecstatic.
Well, you probably intimidated everybody with flashing out your guns like that.
Yeah.
They're all like, we can't look at, we're not going to show our guns. We're going to keep walking. Cathy, thank you. Sharing your journey, sharing that process, watching you. When we first had that conversation of you asking about the coaching for it and going through those pieces, my first thought was, you're going to do what? And then it was like, oh, we got this. And then watching you build through that whole process and learn and experience it, and then watching the pictures and then talking with you afterwards and seeing the smile. And the smile you got on your face right now is just, if you guys can't see her face right now, you've got to come to class so you can see her smile. But it's that radiant enthusiasm of doing this piece. And I'm looking forward to working with you on this 400-mile journey that
only 400.
It's only 400. It's going to be a great time.
Well, thank you. And if I can, I sent texts to you when I could. Thank you. I achieved this. Thank you. Because it's because of this. I had done, pedal with strength training on my own. I'd never done core, never done balance. Balance helped me so much on the incline, decline type of thing. Never thought about that. The encouragement that I get in these classes, I know I achieve more when I'm with other people, but of course I'm a people person, so I have a community now of Carmel people because I don't live in this area. But also the inspiration, oh my goodness, the things people have done here or are getting ready to do is just an incredible thing. So the other part is your knowledge. You not only teach, in the strength class, do this, do that, you tell us why, what's working. Cannot tell you. You talked about what was in my head. You were in my head sometime, Paul, because I like my lower back would be the first thing to go, and I'd remember posture. You got to tuck your hips this way or shoulders back or whatever. But it was so helpful to get me through. And so I will remain here for a long, long time. Not only if I have an event to go to, but that will be so helpful just in life. I'm getting older.
Yeah.
Got to take care of all that stuff. So I really appreciate your influence.
Well, thank you for all that, that compliment on those pieces. And if we, I'd love to take that and pull it out and talk about that because that really does summarize everything that we try to do here at PXP Endurance. It doesn't matter what your event is. If we can get some balance, if we can teach you how to move your body, if we can get you to actually feel how your body's moving and then what the result is, and is that supposed to be what's happening? And if that is uncomfortable, how do you fix it? And how do you apply that to your performance? That is such a huge compliment to me. Thank you for that.
Oh, sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for sharing, Cathy.
Oh, yeah.
You're not done yet, though. We're going to go into our fun question segment.
This is, get ready.
And today, so every time we have a guest, I want to do trivia. And I'm going to pin you two against each other.
Uh-oh.
Now it's competition.
Yep. As we do here. So we have 5 questions, and obviously best out of 5 wins. All right. What was America's first national park?
Yosemite.
Incorrect.
Oh, Yellowstone.
Correct.
Oh, lucky guess.
All right. This one stumped one of my smart people yesterday. What is a single strand of spaghetti called?
Noodle.
Nope. I'll say
noodle.
No. Mm-mm. I'll give a hint. But there's only a 1-letter change in this. In spaghetti, there's only 1 letter changed. It's the last letter.
Spaghetti.
Spaghetti.
Oh, you're close. No.
Spaghetti.
Nope, close. The middle version. Spaghetti.
Spaghetti.
Spanish, bro.
You know how many years ago that was?
Yeah.
It was.
Did you say it? Would you?
No, I said spaghetti.
Oh,
I didn't say spaghetti.
The male version.
He's asking me about Spanish. I took Spanish longer than he's been alive.
Yeah, that's true.
See the things I'm learning here?
Elvis has a song called In the Blanco. I just gave you the answer.
Spaghetto.
Yeah, there you go. All right, I gave you a point. Spaghetto.
I get that one.
Yeah,
wow.
That was a tough one.
That was a lot of work for that one.
Yeah, it was. All right, how many pounds are in a ton?
2,000.
2,000.
Yep, Paul answered first. 2 to 1.
You gotta be quick. You gotta be quick.
What? Okay, I gotta let you listen to this one because I know he's gonna get it.
Oh boy.
I thought you were gonna get more, so I was gonna throw him a bone. What? And no pun intended.
He had no confidence in
No
my
pun
ability.
intended here. What is the largest bone in the human body?
Femur.
Correct.
That's what I would say.
All right,
waited till
you
he
won,
said.
but we're still gonna do the last one. What state has the longest freshwater shoreline?
Fresh.
Florida. Oh no, that's the wrong one.
Nope, freshwater shoreline.
Yeah.
Close to us.
Illinois.
Mississippi?
Nope.
Oh, close to us?
You were close. Mm-hmm. Might border us.
Ohio?
Nope.
Michigan.
Key.
There it is, Michigan.
Really?
All right,
Freshwater
Paul,
because
4-1. That's all right.
Man, it only took me like 50.
I'm not
guesses to get
worthy.
it.
You guys did not do
And you're pulling out my Spanish from like a few decades ago.
This is like Italian because it's spaghetto.
Okay.
But
my Spanish, Italian, yeah, whatever. I'm barely good at English.
Spanian. Oh, that's right, Hispanian right there. All right, I want to go to our shout out segment real quick. Anyone you want to shout out?
Yeah, I've got several. We've got some some new members who have just joined in the last couple of weeks that we're going to be introducing to the group. Some are local, some are not local. If I don't want to forget all these people. There's Brandon Shaw, who's going to be doing some trail running, 100-mile events. Not quite your 400 or 500, but his goal is to be jogging this 100-mile stuff. Kyle DeUlis is going to be doing the same thing in different events, but similar distances. We have, they're so new, I'm trying to grab their names. We'll do those two next week, but they're getting more on the fitness side and then the triathlon world. But the two guys, Brandon Shaw and Kyle DeUlis, are going to be doing some trail running, 100-kilometer and 100-mile events in the next 6 to 8 months. That should be exciting to watch that happen.
Well, sweet.
And Cathy, just for you for this, they're in their space right now where they're talking about their heart rate zones also, and they're like, "Paul, this is so slow," and I'm like, "Yes, it is."
Yeah.
Just deal with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm at your two guys with two girls. I'm going to shout out Delaney and Katie from my class last night. You know, Delaney, she's been one of my favorites since I started because she's one of the quiet, shy ones. But she's there every single day. Like, I just remember at practices, I would see her there every single day. And then track season came along, and she was there every single day. And not a lot of them were because they have other sports and whatnot, which is fine. But she was there every day just working hard, and she would always be like, "Dre, I don't think I can do this. I don't think I can do this." And she persevered through everything, and she's an awesome athlete. She runs for Guerin now, so she'll be a part of that. And then Katie, bringing her to class, improving a lot. Kate, if you would have saw Katie's RDLs on her first day here, you would not have been impressed. That's for sure. But she's come a long way.
Well, that progress. That's a big deal.
Yeah, absolutely. So shout out to them. And then Cathy, do you want to shout out anybody? Any family, friends, or?
Well, I was thinking here the other day, I've switched to coming into 7 o'clock because of schedule. And whenever I walk in, I see all these young people who have gotten themselves up out of bed and come to a 6 a.m. class. It's like, wow. Yeah. So I'm really impressed. I don't know their names, but I'm so impressed.
Well,
so impressed.
Yep. Shout out to the young people in the
we do have a lot. Yeah, we do have a lot of youth that get up, that are motivated and driven. They come in, do their strength training in the morning, go home, get showered, get to school, have enjoyment through school, and then they do their evening workouts. And most of these are local high school runners and getting into their track season and so forth. That's a great kudos to them. And then I want to add something to that. A lot of people think that when you're in season, you can't do strength training. And if we go back to a couple decades ago in the college athletics, people thought that you couldn't do strength training through the season either. If you look around at college athletics right now, if you're not doing strength training, you're not competitive. And you're just not strong enough toward the end of the season, the conference tournaments, that kind of stuff. And the same thing is starting to grasp in the youth sports that you can combine strength training and fitness and have it not be overtraining if you've got somebody who can help link those things together. If you come into it and the strength training is purely exhaustive and the workouts are purely exhaustive, that is a recipe for disaster, but that's not how we approach things here.
Right. No, exactly. Well, good. Well, shout out to them. Shout out to everyone that we gave shout outs to. Hope everyone has fun with those. And then not only was this a special guest podcast, but we have actually reached over 1,000 listens on Apple alone.
Fantastic.
So listens or streams. So welcome to the 1,000.
We're in 4 digits. We're in 4 digits now.
And that's just Apple alone. So shout out to everyone listening on Apple. Still shout out to those of you listening on Spotify and Samsung and Google and even YouTube. We got quite a bit of views now somehow. You must have gotten a haircut or something.
I got a haircut. I got my hair straightened is what happened.
There you go. Yeah, you got your hair straightened.
Yeah, we'll get people to go to YouTube to see what my hair straightened looks like.
Yeah, I bet. All right. Well, thank you, Cathy, for joining us and sharing your story. Loved all of that.
And I want a couple announcements I want people to kind of put on their radar for things that are upcoming. I think I've got 3.
Okay.
One is that we're adding some staff relative to the classes and to coaching. Mm-hmm. So I mean, you're coaching, you're leading the Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 6 p.m. class, which is a youth-focused class. Mm-hmm. You're also doing Tuesday, Thursday morning classes. Mm-hmm. And then we've got Lori Tinsley, who's leading classes on Tuesday, Thursday evenings at 6 p.m. Yep. So we've got some classes that have been added. Those are all on the website for more information there. We've added or are adding some additional coaches, individuals who are Ironman certified and or USA Triathlon certified coaches. They'll be revealed here shortly. But Chelsea Kingston, Bill Guston, Jonathan Sheets are going to be the latest individuals coming on to help with coaching and that sort of thing as we move forward. And then we're adding some youth triathlon aspect to PXP Endurance. So you're going to be helping lead that part. We're going to have a club through USA Triathlon, and individuals who are part of that club will have free USAT youth memberships. We're going to help mentor and grow and partner with some local organizations to help the youth fitness environment relative to triathlon and so forth, and hopefully just get people excited to do things and feel accomplished in doing those pieces. So, individual, I want you to put that on your radar. It's upcoming. We'll have a lot more information coming through the website and other announcements.
Absolutely. You guys can check them out here when we post them or ask us about it. But that is it for this one, the Cathy Wolfe episode. So thank you everyone for listening, and we'll see you guys next week.
See you guys.
Hey everyone, it's Dre here. I just wanted to say thank you all for being patient with us and listening to the podcast. We greatly appreciate all your feedback and welcome it as always. Don't forget to send me your questions so I can get those to Paul. We haven't had any in a while, so I just wanted to remind everyone. Lastly, we just ask you that you leave a review, like, and share the podcast with your family and friends. Thank you all so much. We'll catch you on the next